I am talking about today how I figure out exactly like how food or where food allergies come from. I got asked that earlier this week, and I think I like this kind of pattern that's starting to develop as people ask me questions throughout the week or kind of things happen throughout the week. I share them with you guys just for extra insights and to keep you just abreast of what I'm learning with clients, what I'm learning through readings, and all that good stuff. So I'm just gonna get right into it. So essentially, the way and the thought process that I use to figure out where somebody's food allergies or intolerances come from is essentially what happens in the Food Clues Wellness Profile, which is the first part of the Total Freedom program. It starts with just a baseline of getting all your information and figuring out where your food challenges are coming from, and then almost kind of like a reverse engineering that to get the reactions to reduce. So what are the first things that I look at? So you guys know I always take notes, so I make sure that I don't forget anything. So it looks like there's about 7 general areas or general things that I end up doing when I'm figuring out your food clues or when I'm figuring out your food challenges and their source. The first thing is that I consider food clues. Hey, Scotty, thanks for tuning in. So the first thing that I do when I'm figuring out where food allergies and intolerances come from is I look at the food clues based on the food allergy or intolerance. So if you don't know what food clues are, essentially food clues are the thought process that I use that basically, like in my brain, any food that you avoid is a key to your health, is simply how I explain it. So any food that you avoid is the clue, or I use that as the first clue to start telling me like what's going on. I'll give you an example. I'll give you like a more like an obvious example than some of the tougher ones. Foods that have like a fungal yeasty component. Mushrooms. Let's go with mushrooms. Those are pretty easy. Most people generally know that like mushrooms are part of the fungus family. Generally speaking, avoidance in the natural way that the body works, the body avoids anything that is either threatening to it or that is at like a elevated capacity that taking on any more would be threatening to the body. So knowing that mushrooms are part of the fungal family, if you're avoiding mushrooms or you're having a reaction to mushrooms, then that's automatically telling me that your body is probably having a hard time handling fungus, yeasty things. So that in a nutshell is the concept of food clues. There's a food, you're avoiding it, the characteristics of that food kind of start telling me why and what might be going on inside of you. So that's the first thing that I do when I'm figuring out ultimately where your food reactions are coming from. I look at all of your reactions and do the food clues for them. Then I look at medical and symptom history to see kind of like what matches up. I also consider medications. I also consider drug allergies. So let's see here. Trying to think again off the top of my head. I should have written that part down as a note. But essentially, okay, if we go with like mushrooms, still you're avoiding, they're part of the fungal yeasty family, so I'm thinking that your body is having a hard time managing fungal yeast, and then you have a history of like frequent yeast infections, if you're female, or there's candida overgrowth, there's oral thrush, things that are commonly associated with an elevated fungal load. That makes sense to me. So that's just double confirmation that your body is likely having an issue managing something in the fungal yeasty family. So first thing I do is look at the food clues relative to your actual food challenges, whatever you're allergic or intolerant to. Then I look at symptoms or clues in your medical history that might support that. The third thing that I do is look at your constipation. I assess constipation. It's one of the main ways that we are able to clear our bodies out of anything, germs, toxins, whatever it needs to get rid of. So when somebody is considering working with me, I think one of the things that kind of sets my program apart sometimes from others is that I dive deeply into making sure that I assess your body's ability to eliminate properly. And one of those things that I do is ask a lot of questions and look for a lot of symptoms about constipation, about your inability or your ability to poop. If you know me, if you've worked with me as a client, comment in the comment below the video and tell the people how much I talk about poop, because I talk about it all the time. Over the years in my work, I have found that there's at least 12 different factors. I'm sure there are more, but there's 12 kind of heavy hitters factors that contribute and that can create constipation. You can have one of those factors, you can have multiples of those factors, you can have all of those factors. And I assess that because if there's a difficulty or if your body's having a difficulty eliminating things, then finding the underlying issue that's driving your allergy, we know it's probably something is going to have to be eliminated. If you've got a blockage that prevents elimination and we don't check that, then we're essentially just causing probably more of a traffic jam if we just try to fix said problem without assessing your body's potential or ability to eliminate. So that's thing number 3. Thing number 4 is I look at the other ways that your body detoxifies. I get a couple clues and I look for symptoms or medical history that indicate how well your liver performs in terms of detoxification. I look at history of UTIs. I look for symptoms and clues that will let me know if your kidneys are functioning well, because I want to know about like your urinary system and your urine pathway. So even though constipation is the big heavy hitter and I spend a lot of time focusing on that, the next thing I do is I look at the other ways that the body is supposed to naturally eliminate. Again, it lets me know if that's something that we really need to necessarily focus on extra special to make sure that it's clear and that it's functioning properly so that whatever your ultimate causes driving your food challenges are can work their way out. After we look at detox capability, I look at just additional organ and system performance. I look for extra clues about how your stomach and intestines are working, how you like break down food. I look at skin, any bump, mole, birthmark, anything on your skin, any signs on your skin are usually a clue to the status of something under that area. So I know it's really interesting, but yeah, birthmarks count. So areas where there are birthmarks, skin changes, things like that, those also give me extra clues as to what might be driving the ultimate food challenge. I look at or I assess signaling and communication. So brain to organ connection, that's the thing that I look at next. Again, this is all through asking questions, assessing certain areas of the body through visual inspection, organ inspection, touch, things like that. Some of you might be wondering, like, how do I do this virtually? I have you guys like assess yourselves. I talk you through it and just you let me know if things feel different, if things feel tender, things like that. I do simple tests to see if there's, or if I suspect that there's issues with brain to organ or brain to system communication through different types of symptoms, how you perceive things, certain ways that your body, or I guess I should say certain habits that your body builds over the years. Those can all give me information of how your body works together as a connected unit. And then the last thing that I do is address questions and concerns. So as I'm going through all of this, usually people's, little antenna are going off and they're asking, they may be thinking like, well, what does that mean? And what does that indicate? So the last thing that I do is address and answer all of those questions. And by the end of the profile, by the end of that process, I usually have a really good idea of what's ultimately driving your food allergy or food intolerance. I'll also add this. It kind of goes through, it's almost like 3 kind of stages. Stage 1, in terms of the information that I gather to figure out what's driving a food challenge. Stage 1 is the food clues based off of the food allergy or intolerance itself. Yeah, understanding the profile of the food and what it indicates in terms of what your body may be struggling with. The second thing that I'm looking to identify is how it's affecting your body or the direct effect that it's causing on your body. So again, when we go back to the mushrooms, I know that mushrooms are fungally, and if you're avoiding it, then that middle area, that how it's affecting your body, then I think that elevated fungal or elevated yeast loads is probably the problem that's challenging your body. And then the third thing that I look for are other symptoms, signs for why that's happening. What is causing an overload in fungal loads in your body? That's when I look for signs and symptoms of a toxicity, signs and symptoms of an old infection that may have not fully resolved, signs and symptoms of an old injury or accident that may have occurred that didn't get all the full healing that it needed to. So there might be organs or systems that aren't performing optimally. So that's the third thing that I look for. And then putting all of that information together gives me a really good idea of probably what is driving your food allergy or intolerance. And then moving forward to like the Total Freedom program, all we do is work through that. Over the years, I have found that everybody's different. Everybody is different. Our symptoms present differently. The magnitude of those symptoms present differently, but they do all fit within the same general framework as I continue to work with people. And so the framework that I've created moves through how the body naturally wants to heal itself, how the body naturally wants to get rid of bad things, eliminate things, how the body wants to consider immune performance alongside of all of that, clean out, elimination, healing. So order being very important is what makes the framework work. It's a dynamic framework. If you know me, you know I'm always like reading and researching. So if I find details that cause me to think I can make things a little bit better, I make those tweaks. So yeah, I hope that answers the question of how I figure out ultimately where a food allergy or intolerance comes from. It's a lot of details. It's a lot of layers. There's a lot of moving pieces that I'm constantly, getting information about and, shuffling around when I'm talking to clients. But that said, it's not hard to figure out the actual cause of your food challenges, but there can be a lot of moving pieces. There can be a lot of details to sort through. And so that's why I'm so passionate about helping people figure out what those causes are and guiding them through an orderly but relatively simple program to help them resolve them. So yeah, guys, that's what I got for how I figure out food allergies and intolerances and where they come from. So I hope you enjoyed listening to it. I hope you found it interesting. Definitely hit me up in the comments if you have questions, and I look forward to sharing more insights and sharing more goodies with you guys in the future.